everyone, it's Daphne from Scrap and Create. Today I'm going to begin putting together my 8.5 by 10.5 mini album featuring Graphic 45 Bloom. And I'm actually going to use the same design format that I used for my Princess collection, but I am going to do a few things different in the construction. I kind of figured a few things out from making the first one. So with that, let's get started. So we're going to start with an 8.5 by 10.5 album, and I've already constructed the cover and made my pages. And I'm going to do something a little different this time. I'm actually going to put all my interactive pieces on the pages before I insert them in the book, and see if I can't, if that helps speed things up a little bit, since I won't have to worry about working with the spine. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I've already pre-cut and taped my design elements, and I'm hoping that'll help things go pretty quickly. So we're going to start with 2 flaps that go across the top half of the 8.5 by 10.5 page. And these flaps are 4 by 8, and I'm going to score a 1/2 inch. So the finished flap is 7.5 by 4. And you're going to need 2 of these. We're going to adhere them to the left and right sides of the pocket page on the top half. So I'm standing right now just to make sure I'm in frame. I'm getting ready to sit down, and I will continue to try to speak up so you guys can hear me. Let's go ahead and get this down. So let me get my pick tool here. Here we go. Well, the Bloom collection is beautiful. And part of the reason I'm using an existing design, 1, I loved the way the Princess album came out. And 2, I wanted to get something out with the Bloom collection pretty quickly because it's just so beautiful. I'm anxious to get something out so you guys can enjoy. So right now I'm going to get my, not quite as ready as I should have been. I'm going to pull out a contrast sheet so you guys can see what I'm doing. So this is the top right hand corner of my page, and I'm just turning it sideways so it's closer to me, and I'm just going to marry this corner to this corner and lay this down. And it's a beautiful day here in San Diego, very sunny. I actually started to make the album, or start working on this a little earlier today, and I was getting so much sun in this room, it was washing out the paper, so I couldn't really work. Okay, and I'm just looking across the top to make sure it's nice and even before I press it down in place. Actually, it's a little bit crooked. I'm going to straighten that by slightly shifting, there we go, slightly shifting the score line. There we go, that's in. And so now there's a flap that goes the opposite direction. Open this up, and we're going to lay this down. I'm running across the top to make sure I'm within the top of the page. It looks really good. Okay, so there I have my left and right flap. Okay, and I want it to open this way because the spine is going to be on this side. It's going to attach to the book this way. So I like this flap to close first. So now that I know that, I can place my magnets. And we're going to need 2 magnets and some tape to cover them. And that's really just to keep the edges very smooth so that once the designer paper goes on, you don't see the circle left behind by the magnet. And I'm using 1/2 inch tape to go on top just so it covers the whole edge of the magnet. Excuse me. Inserting it or offsetting it from the edge enough that I don't have to worry about anything being exposed once I put my mat down. Making sure everything's laying flat and lining up neatly. And there we have it. Okay, so there is our first interactive piece. Okay, now I'm going to set this aside. Okay, now we've got the second half of page 1 feature that we're going to work on right now. And I'm going to back up a little bit and give you the measurements. So 8.5 by 5.5. So 5.5 by 8.5. You're going to need 2 of those. You're going to score at a 1/2 inch, 4 1/4, and 8. 1/2 inch, 4 1/4, and 8. And you're going to do that for both. You're going to fold the 2 flanges back and then fold the entire thing in half. And you'll get 2 of those. And when you're done, you're going to take the other 2 pieces that we've cut from 7.5 to 5.5, 7.5, 5.5. One's the back and one's the top. And these get sandwiched in between. So what we're going to do is we're going to line up these corners with these corners. And these will go down like this. And then this last piece goes on top just like this. So before we start laying everything down, one of the things I learned from the first construction process was I need to figure out where my magnets are going and get those in early, because it's a lot harder once you get them down on the cover, on the front and back of this to get the magnets in. So with that, for each one of these, you're going to need a magnet on the outside edge. And just move it far enough away from the edge so that when you get your mat down, your magnet won't be exposed. So each one of these has one on the downside. Then the next thing you're going to do is get your mate, the magnet that's going to mate with it. And it's actually going to be just set right here until you find the attraction point. And we're lining all these up. And then this is actually going to get laid down on top, and so that magnet's going to get adhered actually to this top piece. So that's double back tape to lift it back up once I press it into place. Okay? So I'm going to get my second one ready. And right for the moment, it's just sitting on top based on the attraction to the other magnet. So I'm going to find where there it is. Make sure that's going the right direction. There it is. All right. So there we go. So I'm not going to do anything with that just yet. I just know these magnets are going to go in. So these 2 pieces are going to go down here, and the tape line is going to go toward the center of this. So I'm going to be checking my corners and just looking to make sure I'm laying this down flat. Okay, so that's in. Oops, I didn't want that to happen, but that's okay. I'll set that aside for the moment. So when the top page is attached, it will open like this, okay? So we'll just leave this here until we're ready for it. The same thing is going to go here. So now I'm going to take off the tape backing on one side, and I'm going to marry it to the second half of this, and I want it to be right against this seam right here. Okay, and I'm leaving the cover on the tape because that's going to go down. The exposed tape is going up, and we'll put the other panel on that in just a minute. I'm going to turn this sideways so I can see. And I'm just pushing right up against. That went down too quick. I wasn't ready. So I'm pulling it back off because it grabbed faster than I was ready. And it didn't go in straight. That's very disappointing. It's not coming up. Not coming up. There we go. Okay. I'm not worried about the paper here because there's going to be a mat that covers all that. So I just need to, I'm going to put some glue on this one so that I can actually slide it into place. It's so dry, and there's so much static in the air. Everything is just being drawn to it. So I'm just going to turn it sideways again so I can see this seam, and I'm trying to push this straight up against it. And I hope I do a better job this time, because first time I just put it down too fast and only one corner was right. Okay, and then the nice thing about the glue is it allows me to push it a little bit into place. Okay, there we go. And again, all this is going to get covered up with a mat, so the only thing you're actually going to see is that score line. So I'm not really worried about the little bit of mess that I made there. But if you are, you can always recut this. Okay, there we go. Did I do it right? No, I did not. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Wow. Okay, I don't know why that's so challenging, but it is. And I need to get another piece of tape. Okay. There we go. And now the last piece is just to lay this top down. And when I do, it'll pick these two magnets up. So I'm going to go ahead and take this backing off. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give myself a little bit of glue on both pieces. So if I need to shift it, I can for just a second. And you don't have to cover the entire piece of tape with glue. The glue is creating a little bit of lift off the tape, and that's really all you're looking for. So all you need is just a bead down the middle. Okay. I'm actually going to do it this way so I know it's flush, top to bottom, before I press it. And as you can see, all my corners look nice and crisp, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, and now if you open it slowly, you want to open it slowly, and part of the reason you want to open it slowly is we're wanting to make sure that we actually grab that magnet. And so on the other side, the same thing. I want to make sure that magnet was lined up correctly. And I'm just pressing it into place, and I'll open it and burnish it. Okay, there you go. Burnish, burnish. Okay, so now it's all ready. So when we open it, you've got 4 photo opportunities here and 4 photo opportunities here. And then the back side of this actually gets adhered directly to page 1, but it actually, before we do that, there's going to be a decorative mat that goes here, and then this will get glued down, just like that. So that is the end of page 1 for now. Again, we'll come back and put adhesive on the back of this and apply it. You could also do it now, but then you'd need to put trim around the edge, and I think it's easier to put that decorative paper down first and then just lay this on top instead of trying to figure out the measurements for these thin little strips. So that's really up to you. But page 1 is done. Now we're on to page 2. And page 2 has some flaps and pockets and a paper clip that doesn't want to come out. There we go. I'll set that aside. Okay, so page 2, on the very bottom, I want to make sure I've got the bottom. So that's the top. Here's the bottom. There's going to be a pocket that goes on the bottom. A large flap. Actually, and the pocket goes on top of the large flap. I had that backwards. That's right. That's why it's so short. And then it has a left and right flap. or a top down flap and a left and right flap, like so. So that's how it's going to come together. So I'm going to start by adhering the large flap, which is 10 by 8, and score a 1/2 inch. 10 by 8. Score a 1/2 inch, and before I do that, before I take my tape off, I'm going to dry fit it and make sure it's actually trimmed. Yes, it is. Okay. So if this is page 1, it's going to open this way, and I want this flap to open away from the spine. The spine will be here. This will be the outside edge of page 2. And that's it. Okay. Oh, looks good. I have a little bit of excess on the top, and so I'm actually going to trim that real quick because I don't like it when it hangs over. There, and now that's flush. So I just took a sliver off the edge there. Okay, so that's going to open this way. Okay, the next thing is going to be the pocket on the bottom, and this is 8.5 by 3.5. So it's 8.5 by 3.5, and as you can see, I've scored and taped 3 of the 4 sides. I'm going to double check the fit. Yes, it's right on. And I'll lay this down. And then we'll work on the top flaps. So one of the reasons why I want to get the pocket in is the pocket is actually going to be part of the mechanism that holds the top flap in place. So I need to make sure when I'm dry fitting the top flap that it doesn't overlap the pocket. So that's why I want to put the pocket in right now. I've got a little bit of a curl here. Let's straighten that out. Okay, so there it is. Let's see my contrast paper. So there's my pocket on the bottom of the large flap. Okay. Now the next piece is going to be the top down flap, and the top down flap is 7.5 by 7.5. So it's a square, 7.5 by 7.5. Score a 1/2 inch on one of the sides, and then it's going to get adhered to the top of this flap right here. And I am going to put it in place before I take the tape off, and I can see that it's interfering with the pocket, so I'm going to come back and take a very small sliver off the bottom. So I think I'm going to make it 6 7/8. Okay. So I just took 1/8 of an inch off the edge there. There. Now there's no interference with the pocket. And the reason that's important is because I want to be able to put something in the pocket while the flap is down. And what I put in the pocket is what's actually going to hold that flap in place. Okay, it looks good. So I'm turning it around so I can see the edges. Okay, everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and take my tape off. And so that I can better see this edge, I'm just going to open the page because I want to be able to see this edge as I'm laying this down, so that I get a straight line on a straight line here. And I always start with just laying down one corner and pinching it in place, looking for that line, looks good, and then come across and lay it down. All right, so that looks lovely. So there it is. Perfect. Okay, so the last piece are going to be a left and right flap that get installed just like so. So now I need to make sure that when these flaps are in, they actually don't overlap. And they fit, looks like they fit perfectly. Looks pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over again. So the flaps are not quite as wide as this large flap here, so I'm trying to decide the placement, up or down. And I think I want to kind of center it so that there'll be a strip, a decorative strip on above and below the, I know it's hard to see, above and below where I place this up and down. So I'm not going to mark it, I'm just going to eyeball it. I'll start on this side, yeah. I'm going to press that into place. Okay, and now coming the other way, I just want to make sure that this flap lines up with this flap. So I'd like for them to be, for the flap underneath to disappear under this one when it is closed. And I need to make sure that this isn't overlapping, and it's not. Does everything look good? Everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and take my tape off. Or at least partially. I'm going to get one corner down, and then I may open this flap so that I can see what I'm doing. So right now I'm just stacking them one on top of the other. Tuck my flange under. Make sure it stays lined up. And then I'm going to pull my tab out. Press down my corner. And then I use this little tab as kind of like a zipper to pull the rest of the adhesive off. Okay, just making sure it's staying in place. There it goes. Okay, so here we have it. So we have a left, a right, and a top, and then this whole thing opens out, just like so. Okay, so when we get to the decorative part, I will place a piece of ephemera in here. I don't know what it's going to be yet, because I haven't done the designer layout yet, but there will be something in here that holds this all in place, and that is the end of page 1 and 2. So now we'll move on to page 3. Page 3. Okay, so page 3 is a top-down flap with what I call an extended flap, and then on the very bottom there's another pocket. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you those measurements again. This is 6 by 7.5, 6 by 7.5. 5 by 7.5, and so these are actually going to get layered on top of each other, one on top of the other like this. And I am going to adhere them to what would be the right side of page 3. So if this is page 2, they're going to sit in the books like so. So I want these flaps to be adhered to the outside edge away from the spine. And I've given myself a 1/2 inch here so that I won't have any interference with the spine or the gusset. And I'm doing the same thing here by mounting these to the outside edge of page 3. Okay, so I'm going to turn my page upside down because I want to see this corner very clearly as I lay it down. I'm looking to get a very crisp edge, and the way I do that, and everybody's a little different, but I need to get it as close to me as possible. So rather than reaching over the paper, I'll rotate the paper toward my eye. Okay, and that that's in. Okay, so that's one. So the second half is actually going to get adhered to the flap right here. So this is going to get adhered to the very top line here. And I'm going to again turn it toward me so I can see, and I'm going to use my contrast sheet. I should have dry fit this before I took the tape off, but I'm going to go ahead and do it really quick by looking across to make sure that one of the two isn't wider than the other, so that there won't be any overlap, and there isn't. Okay, so that looks good. So I'm going to, sorry, I'm fussing around. I'm not sure the best way to lay this down. This way, I think. Okay, so I'm going to open this flap a little, and then I'm going to adhere the corner. Make sure I've got a good straight line. Looks good. Get my finger out of the way and turn this around. My glasses are kind of dirty. I think I might have to take a break and wash them. And then I'm just watching, or trying to watch, as I lay down straight across. Okay, there we go. And that is in. So this will open up and then up again. And I like that design, and I've seen it before. I wish I could claim that this was my design, but it's not. I've seen it in other mini albums. And unfortunately, at the moment, it escapes me where I've seen it. But I do like the design, and I like when you're in a particularly large format like this, because trying to hold a 10.5 inch page and then have another 10.5 inches, that's, you know, 22 inches of page. So that's kind of large to have away from you as opposed to across your lap, left and right. Okay, so it's in, and I'm looking at my edges and everything looks good. I'm pretty happy with that. The last part of page 3 is going to be a pocket that gets adhered to the very bottom, and the measurements for this are 8.5 by 3.5, 8.5 by 3.5. You're going to score 3 of the 4 sides, and it's going to get adhered to the bottom right hand corner, and you want to go as close to this as possible, and we're staying away from the spine. Down, there we go. And that is closed, okay? And I'm gonna keep all of this in place with 2 magnets, one that we're gonna put in the pocket and one that we're gonna put on that top flap. So I'm gonna put one on top here, and then we'll marry this one. Get my little note out of the way. Make sure everything is coming down smoothly as I press the magnet into place. Okay, so that's how that's going to stay closed. Okay, I'm going to back up a second because on page 2 I didn't do my magnet. So the top flap is actually going to get held in place by a piece of ephemera here, but I do want to put a magnet on the left and right flap so that when you lift it, they're not flopping around. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I forgot to do that before we moved on. And right now I'm just centering it on this piece of tape because I want it all the way around the edges to soften the edges when I get the designer paper on. You don't see those harsh edges. Even as thin as this is, it will show up, especially on lighter paper. The lighter the paper, the more the edge is going to show. So the more important it is to get tape over it. And it doesn't have to be double-faced tape. That's what I do. It can be any kind of tape. It can be masking tape. you're not going to see it once you get everything in place. So whatever softens it. Okay, so there, now we've got our magnet to hold these two pieces in place. Okay, so we just finished page 3, which opens up, up, and then we have a pocket. Now we're on to page 4 and 5, which are mirrors of each other. And okay, on to page 4. Okay, page 4 and 5 are the same. They're just mirror images of each other. And there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, a total of 4 elements for page 4 and 5. We're going to have 2 large flaps. On the top flap is going to be a pocket, and then on the very base of the page is going to be a pocket as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start by laying down the first pocket on the actual base pocket page. And this is the flip side of page 3. This pocket is actually going to get adhered directly to the edge. And because it's not moving, it's not interactive, I'm not worried about it being too close to the spine or getting hung up in the spine. It's only if it's a flap. If it's a pocket, it's fine. So I'm going to turn this toward me. I'm going to get some contrast paper down. And I'm going to get this pocket in, and I'm going to marry it to these 2 corners. I've got a little bit of overlap there. Okay, I just trimmed that off. I'm dry fitting it before I take the tape off to make sure it does fit and doesn't actually extend past the base page. And it all looks good. So I'm going to get my pick tool. And everything we're doing now, we're going to do the same thing for page 5. Page 4 is going to open to the left. Page 5 is going to open to the right. Tacking these corners to each other. It just helps the flaps lay down a little bit more clearly. I'm going to double check my orientation. So this is the spine side on page 3 because I know the flap opens up and up. So I know this is the spine, so I know it's going to lay this way. Just want to make sure I'm putting that pocket on the right side, the spine side. Okay. Push that corner in. Whoops, I didn't grab. Okay, I'm coming across. That looks great. Okay, that's in. So that is our first piece. Again, that's the pocket. It's adhered toward the spine. And then I've got these flaps, and they're all going to get layered on top. So now I have to think about how I want to organize these so that I don't have a whole bunch of stacking going on. This is actually going to get adhered to this piece right here. I'm going to double check and make sure it doesn't extend past it, and it doesn't. I'm going to trim or miter that corner just a little bit, and then the way I'm going to adhere this is I've got flanges on 2 sides but nothing on the bottom. And the reason I have the flanges is because I'm going to put something in the pocket and I want the full width of the pocket. I don't want to lose a 1/2 inch on either side because of tape running down the side. So I have flanges, but I'm okay with losing a little off the bottom. So I'm going to use the tape for the sides, and I'm going to run a bead of glue across the bottom. And I am going to start by peeling off a little bit of the tape toward the bottom, run my bead of glue and get the bottom in, and then I'll push forward and pull the tape out as I go. So let me get my bead of glue across the bottom. And I'm just going to adhere it directly to the flap. Okay, so now I want this edge to go against this. And this is art glitter glue, which I love, and we have in our shop. Because it dries clear, and not just clear, matte. Just making sure everything is lining up before I commit my tape. The glue just gives me a little bit of time to work. It's not quite right. It needs to come up a little. Okay, so these two corners look good. Pressing my glue into place. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull my tape out on one side, and then I'll do the other. Go. All right, I have a nice deep pocket, and I've got a flange. So we know it's going to get adhered here, and then I've got another flap. So how do I want to attach these flaps? So here's what I think I'm going to do. I think I'm going to attach the small flap to the pocket page, like so, and then rather than attach this flap to the pocket page, I am going to adhere it like so. Okay, so I'm going to move this so we can see what I'm doing. Large flap, well, they're both large, I guess skinny and medium. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere this flap to this flap by putting this score line on this score line, like so, and then I'll use this to adhere directly to the page, and then that way I don't have a flap on top of a flap on top of a flap. It's actually nestled inside. So I'm going to marry these two and then apply it. And I did this a little different in the first construction. What I did was I put a flap on here and then a flap on top of a flap. And so you wind up getting these three seams. The way I'm going to do it now, you're only going to see the one seam. It'll be adhered like so. So I think I like that a little bit better. So let's start by dry fitting it and make sure they're both the same height. And they're pretty close, but I think I might have to trim it after I put it together, but let's see. Where I wanted it, and I am gonna have to take a break and wash my glasses. I can't see. Okay, so we're gonna get this down. I'm just looking to square it. Looks good. Now I have a little bit of an overlap, so I'm going to trim that off real quick. Okay. All right, so that's nice and even now. I just had a little bit of an overlap here on the edge, and that looks really good. So I still have my flange to adhere to the page. So my one flap, and this is my second flap. So this is actually going to get adhered to the outside edge of page 4. So I'm going to go ahead and get this tape off. And I have a pocket, so I want to make sure I get it installed the right way, and it is. That's the top. This is the bottom. that is page 4. Okay, and there's our pocket. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on page 5, only all of this is going to wind up on this side. So we are going to mirror everything, and then I'm going to come back and put some magnets in. Okay, so here are my components, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start by installing the pocket, then the large pocket on the main page, then the pocket on the thin page, and then we'll install the flaps. Okay, so we know we want it away from the spine, or actually we want the pocket toward the spine and the flaps away from. Before I do that, let's dry fit it and make sure it's the right height, length. Looks good. One corner down. Okay. There's our pocket. Goes toward the spine, so everything else is going to go on the outside. So I'm going to set this aside. The next thing I'm going to do is adhere the pocket to the thin flap, and I'm just making sure it's the same width, and it looks really good. Yep. So again, oh, I don't have tape on it. So we're going to tape 2 sides and then run a bead of glue along the bottom. Glue on the bottom, maybe. might have dried on me. Maybe a little more than I meant. Okay. So I'm just double checking that I've got the flange on the right side because I want the pocket to be on the bottom when it swings open. There's a little excess glue there. And then, as we did before, we're going to marry these 2 flaps before we install it. And so that is going, this one is going to get installed like so. And I should make sure they're the same height. They appear to be. Okay, and you can see there's a little overlap, so I'm going to trim that little tag off right now. Okay, all done. So now I've still got this flange left. I'm pulling my page again. So this is page 5, and this is going to get adhered to the outside edge of page 5. And I'm going to use my bone folder to press everything into place before I lay it down. Okay. And a tip that I just recently picked up at my last retreat was baby powder. So if you, or talcum powder of some sort, if you have excess tape sticking out and it's grabbing onto stuff and you don't want it to, put a little powder on it and it will take the tack off the tape. Okay, that's in. So there's page 4 and page 5. They're going to open away from each other like so. So right now I want to focus on getting my magnets in place, or however I'm going to keep the pages closed. And I think I want to use magnets because there's so much bulk going on already. I don't think I want to put a bow in there. So let's get a couple of magnets and see what we can do. So we know we've got multiple layers here because of the pocket. Then we're going to have an insert, more layers. So we're probably going to need a total of 3 magnets. 3 magnets? I think I'll do 4. I'm going to place a magnet here. Getting my 1/2-inch tape to put it in place. About midway. Okay, so that's going to hold the top one in place. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the large flap. I am going to use 2 magnets. And I need to make sure I stay away from the edge of the pocket so that when I put my mat here, I don't expose my magnet. And that should be fine. Okay, all right, these are all in place. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing on page 5. Page 4 and 5, right? So I need 4 more magnets. That's 2 and 2. Okay. And all right. Okay, that's page 4 and 5. Okay, now we're on to page 6, which is this side. Make sure I've got, yeah. Got a little bit of tape tape sticking out there. Page 6. Okay, so now you're going to start to see the same pages in reverse. So this has got a flap and an extended flap and a pocket, and I will go over those measurements for you really quickly. We've got a 6 by 7.5, 6 by 7.5, scored 1/2 inch, and this is 5 by 7.5, scored 1/2 inch along the 5-inch side. So we're going to adhere this one to the top. So this is 6. So this is the outside edge is this way. So the spine should be here. So this was page 5. There's my spine. There's my spine. I want everything adhered to the outside edge of the page, which in this case is the left side. Okay, so I am going to put this, rotate this corner around so I can see what I'm doing. And I still can't see what I'm doing, so I'm going to turn it all the way upside down. And the only risk with rotating things around like I do, it makes it a lot easier to see, but it makes it easier to put things in upside down too. So I'm still on the right side edge, or the left side edge. Correct edge, I guess is a better way to put it. And now I need to put my extended flap on, then we'll add our pocket, and that's page 6 for us. So page 6 is pretty easy. And of course they're all easy once you do them once. It's like, oh yeah, now I remember how to put all these things in place. Let's see, how did I do that last time? I think I did it this way. I am going to insert my contrast page so I can line these corners up nicely and then go across. Okay, that looks lovely. Lovely, lovely. Okay, we'll put our pocket in, and then the last thing we're going to do is, I'm going to look at that again, make sure they look the same. Yeah, they do. Is add a magnet. Okay, remember the correct side in this case is going to be the left edge of the page. Okay. And now we want to add a magnet. It's not quite centered. That tape all the way around it. There we go. Okay, so 5, 6, 7. Okay. And this is, that's my left right flap. There's my pocket. And there's my top. Okay, so this, I'm having to think through the orientation. So 6, 7, 7. Okay, that's right. Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm getting my flange on the right side. So that's the outside edge right here. And I don't know why I don't mark the pages, but it would be helpful. Something to consider, just putting an S on the side that has the spine, so you know. So this is the spine side on the left side right now. The right side is going to be the away side. And the large flap gets adhered to the outside edge on page 7. All right, that's in. So pretty easy. I'm going to burnish that real quick. And then on top of that, we are going to have a flap that comes down. And if you recall, we installed the pocket first because I want to make sure I don't have any interference with the pocket. So here's the pocket. Let's go ahead and make sure that this fits. It looks like it does. Yes, looks lovely. I'm going to take my tape off and put this down. Okay, there's the pocket. Okay, now the top flap comes down. And I think I took 1/8 of an inch off the last one, and I think I'll do the same thing here. Let's see. Actually, it looks like I might have already trimmed a bit off, so just a little bit more. And now I know I don't have any interference with the pocket. So the next thing I'm doing is making sure that left to right, it doesn't over, yeah, it looks like it fits. So I'm going to turn it right upside down so I can get a closer look at the edges, and then go ahead and get this top flap put down. And I'm going to focus on, that's the outside edge. This is a spine edge, so I'm going to make sure that the outside edge is perfectly straight. So I like to push down just one corner because then I can still pivot the paper until I'm happy with how it's lining up. There we go. Lovely. I'm going to burnish that quickly. And then the last two pieces are the left and right flaps. And I centered these on the last page, so I'll do the same thing here. Through, how do I want that? I'm gonna change. Can't get a grip on it. Move my contrast so that it's under the flap here. There we go. And then the same thing on the other side. It looks like I might need to trim just a tiny bit off, otherwise this one won't close. So there we go. And you can do that with a straight edge or with your trimmer. I use my trimmer real quick, but sometimes it's easier to use your straight edge. You don't have to move things back and forth so much, but up to you. Up to you. Okay, now I want these two I want the top one to make the bottom one disappear, so I'm just lining it up left and right first before I try to put down. Can't quite see what I'm doing. I don't know what is going on with my eyes today. I guess maybe allergies, but wow, I'm having a hard time seeing. Okay, that's it. That is the end of, well, almost the end of page 7. We're going to put 2 magnets in. So the magnets are going to hold the flaps. And then we'll have a piece of ephemera to hold the top down. That is the end of page 7. And then the flip side is page 8. So page 8. So we have that flip-flop mechanism like we had before. And then across the top is we have a left and right flap. Make sure that's the top. And it is. Okay. Okay, and that's in. And again, this is page 8. And so we have the same mechanism that we had on page 1. So we have the bottom, and then we have the 2 center pieces. And I have to think about where I put my magnets, but we do need 4 magnets, or 2 pairs. I think I forgot to tell you the sizes, but 8.5 by 5.5, 8.5 by 5.5, score at 1/2 inch, 4 1/4, and 8. And this is going to get adhered to the center. like so. Okay, that one's in. So now the second one is going to get adhered right next to it. And I had some trouble with this last time, so this time I'm going to put some glue on it so that I have a few minutes to maneuver before it really takes hold. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna burnish these. Okay. Now I know I want these to stay closed, so I'm going to put a magnet here. I'm going to do the same thing on the flip side. Magnet here. Okay. So if you look, there's a magnet on this side and then one on this side. Okay, and then we want the matching magnets to go on top. There we go. All right. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take this tape off, and then this is the cover that goes here. And that is going to get installed on page 8, but it doesn't get installed until we put our decorative mats in. So I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. I'm going to stand it on its side so I can make sure top to bottom it's lining up, and I'll line up these corners. And then I'll press across. And that's it. Okay, so that's going to open like so. And like so. Okay, so this will be covered with decorative paper and get adhered to the bottom half of page 8. So that is all of the interactive pieces. So the next video I come back, I'll be layering in all the designer elements. So thank you for tuning in. And again, this is Daphne from Scrap and Create, and we are working on our 8.5 by 10.5 Bloom mini album. Thank you.